call to order the Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, June 18th, 2020. Please stand and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Harker, would you please call the roll?
Yeah, a lot of people are missing. I'm brain dead. Sorry. Commissioner Knobloch.
Here.
Commissioner Casey.
Here.
Sorry.
Here.
Commissioner Smokey.
Here.
Commissioner Geisler.
Here.
It should be noted that Commissioners Heikela and Bradley are not at the meeting at this time.
And I'm here as well.
Pardon?
I'm here as well.
I didn't say, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Chair Schwartz.
Here. All right, our first order of business this evening is to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Geisler, second by Knobloch. Any changes, discussion, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The agenda is adopted. Next, we have approval of the minutes of our May 21st meeting.
Chair Schwartz,
Commissioner Knobloch.
I move that we approve the minutes from the May 21st meeting.
I'll second.
Motion by Knobloch, second by Smokey. Any additions, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. First order of business is planning case 20-4, a lot split at 10506 Hanson Boulevard, Coon Rapids United Methodist Church. Mr. Harlicker.
Yeah, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. This is a request by the United Methodist Church for a lot split. This is the property here, highlighted or outlined in black. This is the service road for Coon Rapids Boulevard. What's being proposed is to split this approximately this location here with this small triangular piece being transferred to the church, and the city would then retain ownership of the remaining part of the parcel as street right-of-way for the service road. Here's the lot split. As you can see, parcel B will be kept as street right-of-way, and parcel A will be provided or transferred to the church, so they will own, go back to the, they will own this piece here as well as this, and this is their main parcel down here. Parcel A will have to be combined with the adjacent parcel here. And then when this parcel does develop, part of the process will be replatting all this as one lot. With that, I'll answer any questions. Staff is recommending that the lot split be approved with the condition that engineering comments be addressed, and parcel A be combined with the abutting United Methodist Church property.
Thank you, Mr. Harlicker. Commission, any questions for Mr. Harlicker?
Chair Schwartz,
Commissioner Knobloch.
I have a question for Mr. Harlicker. The 1,920 square feet from parcel A, is that going to affect, once the plat is eventually presented and brought before the commission, will that involve a park dedication fees in addition besides the regular addition of square
Yeah,
footage
when
to
this,
taxes?
when this larger parcel comes in to be replatted, they'll be required to pay whatever park dedication fees are applicable at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Casey.
Mr. Harlicker, is there development pending in that other area that you're saying it could be attached to?
At this point, no,
Okay, but it's
Commissioner Casey.
available.
At some point, it will get
Combined with that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And Mr. Harlicker is the petitioner present.
Yes, they are.
Anything they would like to add at this time? All right. All right, we need to have a public hearing on this matter, so at this time I will open a public hearing in planning case 20-4, a lot split at 10506 Hanson Boulevard, Coon Rapids United Methodist Church. Anyone wish to speak at the public hearing? Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and retain discussion by the commission.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Schmokey.
I will, in planning case 20-4, I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the proposed lot split.
I'll second it.
With the stated conditions?
With the stated conditions, thank you.
Thank you. And we have a motion by Smokey, second by Knobloch. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. This is a recommendation by the Planning Commission and a decision by the City Council at their July 7th meeting. Good luck. Our next case, planning case 20-6, a site plan approval for a multi-tenant commercial building at 1825 Gateway Drive. Sambatek, Mr. Harlicker.
Yes, Chair and Commission, this is a request for site plan approval for approximately 7,900 square foot multi-tenant office building. At this location here, Hanson Boulevard, Gateway Drive coming in, with Northdale being the east or southeast leg of that intersection. McDonald's, Taco Bell, the existing buildings are shown in the air photo there. This is the site plan for the project. You can see it's situated in this area here. This area to the north is floodplain, wetland, and undevelopable, so development is concentrated in this area here. We do have a proposed drive-through on the south side of the building. There is enough stacking room to accommodate that. Parking on site is, or meets city code. There is some kind of ad hoc temporary parking here, but that has always been intended to be parking for this building. This is the access coming in off of Hanson. So it does exceed the required parking per city code. This is the grading plan, this stormwater pond here. Most of the stormwater is taken care of in the existing stormwater ponds that have been constructed over the years. Dumpster enclosure is to the back of the building here. The exterior material, that'll be consistent with the material of the building. Exterior lighting, there is a standard that's been set with the previous development, not so much a standard, but a style And the exterior lighting for the site will be consistent with that style. The landscaping, the PUD landscaping plan does show landscaping along this backside here, so that will be installed. Otherwise, the landscaping and site is sufficient. As you can see from the air photo, there is a sidewalk that extends past Taco Bell to the property line. That'll be extended into this site from this point here, and then connect with the sidewalk for the building. And there'll be a crosswalk across here to accommodate that crossing. The exterior of the building will be very similar to that of the existing multi-tenant building with Jimmy John's and Caribou in it, with the brick exterior, the Aoife up here. The applicant is in the audience, and they do have a material board that reflects that. With that, staff is recommending approval of the site plan with the following conditions. All engineering comments be addressed. Site security agreement be entered into with the city. All signs require a separate permit. There is a monument sign that'll be out along Hanson Boulevard, multi-tenant sign, so that'll accommodate some signage for this building as well as the building signage. Sidewalk be constructed that connects with existing sidewalk on the Taco Bell site. And with an addition to that, a crosswalk be installed across the drive aisle, connecting it with the sidewalk along the building. Light fixtures be consistent with those established in the PUD. A decorative light fixture be installed on the peninsula adjacent to the Taco Bell right here. That will match the other decorative lights that extend down along the sidewalk out to the main drive here. And I noted this here, a crosswalk be installed across the drive aisle adjacent to the Taco Bell site. With that, I'll answer questions. The applicant is also in the audience with a material board sample and can answer questions also.
Thank you, Mr. Harlicker. Commission, any questions for Mr. Harlicker?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Geisler.
Mr. Harker, I sent you some notes earlier, but the question of the unimproved parking spaces that are already there where they're asphalt but not curbed, those have never been considered for any of the existing development for parking requirements, is that correct?
Commissioner Geisler, no, they have not.
Okay, so they are bonus parking for as far as.
They just evolved.
Okay. And then the other question, if you could go to the aerial picture there, you know, and it's funny because it's in this picture, it's in the Google Street View, and I drove by there today. There is almost always a semi offloading in this road, feeding into the Jimmy John's Caribou, and it happens all the time. Has there been any discussion with the existing tenants and the future tenants of where service for these things will happen, where these semis will offload? Because there's just not a lot of room here.
Yeah, I agree with that. There are not designated loading and unloading bays in the PUD. So that's the best spot for them to unload. I think with this site here, given the size, there might be a better opportunity to actually maybe pull off and do it on site for here. Maybe the applicant can speak to that too.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Harlicker?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Casey?
So, Mr. Harlicker, how many tenants would be possible in that building? Is it being assembled for 4 or 5, or? And they all have separate entrances? Is that what I'm seeing?
Yeah, Commissioner Casey, this elevation here shows 5 tenants. They do have the capability to provide fewer larger tenants with the floor plan. It's really an open
Okay.
floor plan inside, so they've got flexibility as to how they want to split it up.
And then it extends along the north edge, just around the corner, part of that is exposed as tenant space also?
This here,
Yeah. kind
that
of-
would be this tenant here. That's the side window for this one
Okay.
here. It's not an additional tenant space.
Okay. Then I had a question about the landscaping. Do I understand that right, that there's going to be landscaping on the west side that would, I'm looking at the landscaping, I didn't see it along that drive-through.
Right,
Stacking space.
On the PUD landscaping plan does show landscaping along here. And staff is recommending that that landscaping be installed.
Okay.
It's not on here, but it should be added as a condition. Condition 8.
Mr. Chair.
So condition 8 would be
West side landscaping?
additional landscaping on the west side.
Consistent with the PUD landscape plan.
Okay, thank you. And I drove down there, I drove by there this evening on my way there, and yes, there was a semi unloading right at, just to the north of Taco Bell's property, so they had it opened up, and I don't know how long they were there, but
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Schmolke.
Mr. Harlicker, do you mind taking us through again with the comment about the semi? Can you show us again the flow for the drive-through, how that?
Yeah, the drive-through goes, it'd come around this side, north side of the building.
Okay.
And that's the drive-through lane. right
And then
there.
can you go
And
back to
exit
that-
out on the south end of the building.
Okay, and the aerial view again where it's the, yep, that view. So you can see where the semis, that this semi is parked. Do we anticipate that this is going to be an area of concern then with the drive-through, right? The drive-through will come out about where that semi is, correct? Not that the semi is permanent there, but
Right.
knowing that they use that space, I do tend to agree. It feels like there's a concern we need to probably address. I'm not sure what the answer is, but
Yep,
I don't know if the,
I think everybody will agree that congestion is something that occurs regularly in here.
we want to make sure
But there
that
is
the-
room to
the
get
traffic can
around,
move around, right?
in
To be
narrow
able,
space. It's not totally blocked.
Okay.
And times that I've been there, people have just taken turns to get by the semis. And this comes out right opposite
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy John's
the Jimmy John's there, or the,
and the Holiday.
and the driveway. So
car
I don't know
wash.
that you can have semis parking here and blocking the drive-through lane
okay,
for a Caribou Coffee. It's been my experience that most of the time, they're parked up here by the Holiday Station,
okay.
up in here, and then actually right by the station itself.
So I'm wondering do we need to add like a no parking area there? I mean, is there any sort of restrictions we should be requesting to help ensure that semis are not loading and offloading in that particular area? In case they hang over the exit coming out of where the drive-through would come out, things like that, would they be blocking? So today, because they're parked across from the Jimmy John's, people can still get in and out of there, but I'm thinking now, once we have new driveways opposite that,
Yeah.
if they tend to hang over, or they create a blind so that traffic coming out can't see to turn right or have to make a wide turn around, I just see it as problematic. So I'd love to hear how what the petitioner thinks about
Yeah.
it too, but seems to me like we should do something to say that you can't load and offload there or park there once this gets constructed.
One option might be, dedicated no parking signs.
Correct.
At
Chair
strategic
Schwartz.
locations within the development.
Do we add that then as another condition?
I wish the attorney was
Yeah, I
here.
know, I do
I
too.
think we can.
Okay,
You know, the only issue might be that that condition not only affects the petitioner, it also affects the
exactly.
inside, the
It's,
existing
it's
property
a safety
owners.
issue, it's a congestion issue, it's
Yeah.
a number of things, yep.
Again, that might be something that can be addressed as part of the association documents that I know. I believe are we still working on those? Okay.
So is there a recommendation on how we should phrase this to include it in the conditions? To make sure that it is addressed, since we don't have legal counsel? Is it something we make a note that it has to be followed up with before the next step of the process?
Why don't-
Certainly.
You need to come to the
Why don't you come
microphone to speak, please,
For other properties.
and state your name and address for the record, please.
Jonathan Adam, I'm here for H&W Family Development. We're the original developer of the entire property. As you know, it's all been under PUD. Accepted proposed plans have been in place since 2007. I understand what you're asking. I think, though, that putting a sign up across from somebody else's property, not ours, right now we're going to have a parking strip on the east side. They're not going to be able to park there anymore because there's going to be cars there. So we can't, I don't know how you can dictate a sign on another property adjacent to
Right.
them. So I just want to, it doesn't seem like that can happen in this circumstance. What I can tell you is that the deliveries for the lot that we're talking about tonight have been designed, and they can do a full circle around the building. So we actually decreased the size of this building from the original PUD plan that you saw,
Okay.
meaning just, I think we were at 10,000 feet,
Yeah.
and we're down to 8,000 because I did recognize that we feel like it'd be nice to have more parking instead of less there. So we've actually gone over the code on parking compared to where we were before, and then we also made sure that we could loop a truck around that drive-through lane. As far as the other properties, I think what's happening probably is just because there's nobody there, they're using it, right? And they'll find another way, and they'll have to find another way to do their deliveries in order to maintain that flow. So I don't think that's untypical of any other developments either and this is a private road. So it's more like an internal circulation rather than a, standard type of street that the city would have.
Thank you.
Mr. Harlicker, a question on the landscaping. Is there any need or requirement for landscaping on what would be, I guess, the south property line abutting Taco Bell?
There was not. I mean, it doesn't say the commission couldn't look to add maybe another 3 trees on there. But that was not shown on the PUD landscape plan. I mean, there is room along there to put additional trees.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Harlicker at this time? All right, the petitioner, would you like to give any presentation, your materials board, and anything else that you might want to add?
Can I pass this around, or how would you like to do
Yeah, that's fine.
So what we've decided to do here, we would like to finish off the development at this point. And so we have, one of your other items tonight is the daycare that you'll be discussing, and this was our last lot. So we decided that we'd like to, move forward to put a plan together. At this point, we have no tenants identified at all. It was partly because we'd like to do the construction phase at the same time that the daycare was looking at it to limit the disruption for the rest of the tenants in the neighborhood there. So the materials are going to be pretty much a replica of the building that the Caribou and Jimmy John's are already in right now. The color palette's the same, same architect, same design, construction method, all those things. So I appreciate your time tonight, and if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. I think, you know, it's just nice to see that we're finally getting to the end here, so. And we still want to provide a good product for the development, so.
I have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
What's the width of the roadway there between what would be this building and the building with Taco John? Or, no, Taco John, the one across. Or Jimmy John, I'm sorry.
Looks to be
What
just
is
shy
it?
of 30
You
feet.
know, I don't know the answer. Do you?
It's 30 feet.
30 feet?
It's wider than typical drive lane
Okay.
because of the semi, you know, the delivery
And
concerns.
I think we widened it
out.
actually, didn't
We
we?
widened it out to make sure that there was more maneuverability there.
Okay.
It's wider than a typical drive lane.
And would you have any problems with us including a condition that all deliveries to this building be from the rear drive? So that we would not have additional semis on that roadway in front?
I think that's, I'm not opposed to looking at the delivery system and figuring out how to make it work, but I wouldn't want to see any restrictions there because I don't even know who the tenants are. Could have a clothing tenant, they may not have semis. If it's a food, maybe they have semis, maybe they don't. Every tenant kind of has their own method on how they arrange for deliveries. And I think it's tough to say right now to put any kind of restriction on that. And we did design it, as I said, to accommodate that delivery method through the rear. But I would hate to have to put a restriction on something where we didn't have anybody else have a restriction in the complex for deliveries. Nobody else had that requirement.
Commission, any questions for the petitioner?
I do. Mr.
Commissioner
Chair.
Casey?
So you're saying that drive-through behind the building goes from the north down the west side, that'll accommodate a semi?
Right.
Okay.
We actually made it wider. We changed this a little bit to help accommodate some of these things that you're asking about.
Okay.
So we pushed where you guys see the temporary parking now with the pavement, that's actually pushed further to the west. So we did enlarge the drive aisle from what you see currently today. So that'll actually widen out a little bit there when you're coming around the curve.
Okay,
So that was to help with the truck movement as well.
all right. And then the interior roads are, you're saying is 30 feet wide as opposed to 24? Is that, 24 is pretty standard? So the interior drive lanes,
Yeah, I think it's 30 feet from the edge of the parking stall to the curb line on the east side.
Now, please come to the microphone if you're going to
Oh.
speak, please. And give your name for the record.
Chad Ayers, civil engineer, Sambatech. Yes, we widened that out to 30 feet from the end of the parking stall to the curb line, the existing curb line that you guys are referencing as Jimmy John's, the existing curb line. So, you know, typically 24, 25 feet is pretty standard, so we widened it out to 30 just to give some more maneuverability there.
so it would accommodate the fire truck and things like that too?
Correct, as you'll see with the new creations presentation tonight, and that existing right in, right out, or right in off of Hanson, you can see that intersection there becomes kind of a congested area. So we not only widened out the drive lane width, but we widened out the curb radiuses to allow more maneuverability room, whether it's just a passenger car or a small box truck that's delivering. Like Jonathan said, you know, we don't have any tenants lined up, so we just widened everything out to give more maneuverability, but I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and just as an aside, when I drove down that area tonight, when I came here, I didn't have any trouble getting around the semi, or, you know, there wasn't like backed up traffic or anything like that. I came in off Hanson and just surveyed spot, and there was the semi, but, I mean, it was easy to get around them, and there was only one. So, I hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commission, any other questions for the petitioner at this time?
Chair Schwartz,
Commissioner Knobloch?
I don't have a question, but I have more of a statement for the commission. I know we've used it in the past, but when it's become an issue, we've recommended having hours of operations for deliveries. So if it does become an increased issue or problem, that would be something outside of our scope perhaps, and that maybe if it does become an issue, that the applicants consider recommended hours of delivery. Because we have recommended or imposed that on other applicants in the past. So that's all I have to submit there.
The problem with that possibly would be if we don't make that a condition now tonight when we handle the case, we can't come back and add that later. It would be something that it would be out of our purview.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Smokey?
I think it's a good recommendation and good idea. I think the challenge is that we haven't imposed that on any of the other tenants and so forth of the other existing buildings. So I'm not sure that it would be fair to impose it on this particular site because of the concern raised today. So I think if the width they think can handle it, my biggest concern is traffic coming out of that site to come, to go, I don't remember the direction, but to go like past the Holiday towards McDonald's and so forth. If the semis are parked there, can they see around it, et cetera? That's my main concern. So you create an obstruction there. So if that is, becomes a problem, I'm going to assume that other areas will take care of putting in the appropriate parking restrictions if they need to be applied.
That makes sense to me too, and being as it is a wider aisle, it wasn't any problem getting around it.
Good.
So I agree, if we didn't stipulate it for other businesses there on that site.
It wouldn't be
we shouldn't
fair.
do it for this one. But Ray's talking about instances that we have, and maybe those were standalone businesses that, didn't encompass the shopping areas, multiple businesses, so.
Yeah, one instance was where it was directly adjacent to a residential home. And so to accommodate that, to make sure that it wasn't,
Oh, I think you're right.
interfering there, we did that, so.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler?
Thank you. Just for discussion, I know we're talking about this specific site, but as the applicant said, there's another site that we're considering later today. There is going to be a significant increase in volume of traffic in this one little road. That is still, even though 30 feet wide, still only 2 lanes, one in, one out. I think the way this site is laid out, if deliveries were happening on the north, the west, or the south side, and the vehicles are parked outside of the road, I think that's great, I think that's fine, or if they're occupying parking spaces, again, we're fine with staying out of the roadway. I would assume something around city ordinances of not parking in the middle of a road are there. The existing semis park where they park because there's nothing else past Caribou and Jimmy John's, there's nothing there, so it doesn't really matter. But as it is, we know that Caribou and Jimmy John's need deliveries and they use semis. We know that they will be parking there, parking somewhere in this space, and they will ostensibly be using this lot to unload or offload if they can't park in that roadway. The other concern I have is, most things that have a drive-through tend to have a morning rush. Even Taco Bell has breakfast now. And so when you start talking about the stack-up space of Caribou, which frequently stretches into that roadway, you have the stack-up space where people are exiting whatever this new one would be, as well as the surge for a daycare center, which primarily has a lot of drop-off in the morning and in the evening. I just have concerns about the entire traffic pattern of this development at this point based on what is going in. The 5 retail buildings here, I think will probably be fine from that perspective, but throwing the childcare center on the end of a dead end where there's the only way out is past 2 drive-throughs, actually 3 if you want to throw Taco Bell's in there, and the semi-onload offload place. You know, I guess my question is, have we really looked at the traffic levels of what could be surging here in the mornings and in the evenings when pickups are happening? Today, I went at about 6 o'clock, it was pretty dead. But, you know, I don't know what that would be around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, when the daycare is busy. And I know we're going to talk about the daycare later. I have different conversations there, but this is the primary roadway that will be impacting this. So I think the building is great. I think the site layout for what the plan is for this site is good. I have concerns about what will happen when we put the daycare on the end and everywhere else as a full unit, which is kind of what we're charged here, is to look at the entire area around it. So I'm on the fence here about how this is going to shape out. I'm not concerned about parking for this specific space. It's just the onloading, offloading commercial levels for the entire area here. And without some sort of shared agreement of where semis are going to be, I feel like we're going to create bottlenecks and accidents and, you know, putting in sidewalks, we're going to have more pedestrians around. It seems like we're building up more risk in this space than may be necessary.
Commissioner Smokey.
So, Commissioner Geisler, so is the concern still about the location of the semis, just to be clear, or is it the overall traffic flow? Because I would have assumed that when the PUD was being first proposed and knowing the types of business we were hoping to go in here and the road development that was planned, that the traffic flow had to have been considered in terms of general traffic flow. The semis, I think, is maybe where I think we're both a little bit more concerned, where it increases the concern is just with the added semis. Not, for me, it's not the general traffic flow, because I'm trusting that they planned for that with the one way in, the one way out, and so forth, to help ensure the safety from that perspective. I'm sorry, the question to you then is still, because I wasn't clear, is your concern still with the semis then, and the loading and unloading from that perspective, or are you still talking general traffic?
Mr. Chair, for me, I believe that if we can move semis to onloading or offloading to the north, west, or south of this development for the area, that addresses that. Whether that's a restriction on here, or whether that's strongly encouraged, whether that's a city code level thing of not blocking a road for parking, I think there's a couple ways we can address that. I would maybe see what city has to recommend there. I guess what I would question, and I think is my open side of this, is did we consider that the business that would be going in where the childcare center is proposed have such a surge in traffic of ostensibly 70 to 150 vehicles in a 2 to 3 hour window twice a day for pickup and drop off when that building is at full capacity? Or whether it was just considered for general retail, which is a little smoother over the day. And if we've done, I mean, as was alluded to, this was plotted out 14 years ago. So have things changed with the traffic volumes that we're looking at, and have we really looked at the traffic analysis here? And should we maybe pause to see if there is enough flow through here or not?
Chair Schwartz.
Commissioner Knobloch.
I have a question for the planning department, Mr. Harlicker. With the development, with the Honda dealership, with Taco Bell, with all the increase in development in this area, has the planning department for the city done any in-depth traffic analysis in this area that we're looking at today?
Commissioner Knobloch, we have not. I believe when the Honda dealership came in, they did provide traffic data based on what they would generate, and it was determined that the existing main drive coming through there could handle that, the traffic. along with the existing development and future development at this end of the site.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Smokey.
So I guess where I'm still hung up is, I think in terms of what has been presented to us today, I don't see, and I think I'm hearing from the rest, that I don't see there's any problems with what's been presented today. Is it our place to be addressing the semi situation? Or is that something that we are and I wish we had legal counsel here today to help us with this. I think that's where we're a little bit at a loss of, do we somehow attach this concern to what's presented to us today, or is it something that we're addressing back to city staff to look into to see if there needs to be some improvements there?
well,
I just don't know, because
Commissioner
it's the
Faulkner.
whole area, I mean, because this is a plan, right? The road it's an outcome of adding this, right? But I don't know what I feel like we should be able to move forward and approve or, make a decision on this today. I'm just not sure how to handle the traffic situation. Because I don't feel like it should be just on this particular proposal that this burden is being placed.
Yeah, Commissioner Schmolke, I think with the design, the layout of the traffic flow around this site here can accommodate, the deliveries for this
Okay.
building. Does it address the existing conditions further down the road? It does not.
If challenges come up, right, with the semis in there with the added flow of traffic, what is the process that would take place to address that? That would be brought up to the city council, correct? Wouldn't it, and to staff, to look into a traffic study and to see what changes could be made at that time?
We could do that. The gray area for me, without a legal background, is these are all private
Right,
roads in there. I'm not sure what authority we as the city have to go in and correct perceived problems.
okay.
I don't have an answer for that. I mean, it's certainly something we could look at. The commission could add as a condition, maybe asking staff to research it and, if possible, come up with a mechanism to address
Yeah.
traffic issues, truck deliveries,
Right.
if they become more of an issue in the future.
Commissioner Geisler.
So if I maybe reword that, Mr. Harker, if we were to add a condition that staff perform a traffic analysis with the whole site as planned to be developed between this planning case 20-6 and 20-5, and remediate any issues found within that, would that get to the heart of that matter? If any issues are found?
It would, Commissioner Geisler. Typically, with traffic studies related to specific developments, the applicants pay for the cost of these traffic studies. I don't know how that would work out, how we would do that in the future, if we were to add that as a condition.
I'm still struggling because the problem isn't being caused by them today, by the new proposals. It's not that it's caused by this. It is going to contribute to it, but it's not. I mean, what's bringing it up today is the fact that we've seen semis there, so we're anticipating there's going to be additional flow. I think I'm tending to say, I don't know if others agree, if we can trust that if there are challenges, that there is a process in place that will address those traffic concerns at a future date, I'm fine moving forward with just, looking at the conditions that are in front of us for this proposal. But if it is something where if we don't address it today and add it as a condition somehow, that it then, if it's a problem in the future, the city's hands are tied in being able to do anything about it, then I'm concerned. So I'm not quite sure still how to move forward here.
I think maybe at this point, we understand the concerns for it, and we do have some time to research it before it actually, goes to council,
Okay,
and maybe have some more solid answers for you once we have an opportunity to look into it a little more.
so would we still be making our motion on this today then?
I think you can make it as included in the motion, but I would be hesitant to add it to a condition to this, your recommendation on this specific site plan.
But we're making the decision today. We're
Oh,
not
yes,
making a
that's right.
recommendation,
Yeah.
we're making the decision.
Yep.
So,
And we have till July 10th, technically, according to this.
Which would be before our next meeting.
It would be, yes.
right. And my intent is not to add extra burden onto the petitioners here today. I want to make that clear. It's like, because, again, I'm not sure that they're the ones that are causing this. And hence, that's my question, is where does the responsibility fall if there is a problem? So where is it best to address this? So is it something, if we were to, do we postpone a decision until we get an answer
Well, we can't
on it?
postpone, we've got to make a decision because
Chair Schwartz?
the time expires prior to our next meeting.
Got it.
Chair Schwartz, the city does have the option of extending it for 60 days,
Okay.
if you so desire.
Chair Schwartz?
Commissioner Knobloch,
I have a resolution. I'd like to make a proposal in planning case
No.
20-6. No,
We
you don't
still
want
need
to
a public-
visit?
we still need a public hearing, so you can't
Oh, okay.
make any motions yet. I see the petitioner came up, is there something he wishes to
Yeah, I
add?
was wondering.
I fully understand what your concern is with the delivery system here. I mean, this thing traffic studies were done, design guidelines were done. This was a 1.5 year in process. This design is in place. There's really no way to change that design necessarily at this point. You already have property owners there. And I agree with you that placing the burden on one property, there's really no way to do that. So here's my suggestion. I'm happy to reach out to the Taco Bell Holiday and the building owner of Jimmy John's and Caribou and just talk to them on our behalf to say, hey, we need to figure out a solution here if there is a problem. I've not been made aware of a problem. I understand that there was a semi there tonight, but it was in the parking stalls that technically are already on our property and not designated for anybody else. I mean, it can be used, and that's why we put them there. My point, though, is there's nobody there today, so that's probably why the semi used it. They're going to go to the least resistant path, right? So we can certainly work together as a whole in the private development to figure out the delivery system on internal roadways to accommodate this. I just don't know how you can restrict and add clauses to certain properties and not others and in this idea. And they just need to figure out the delivery system on their own. All the tenants are going to have different ways to deal with this, and if they need to change their schedules, then that's what they're going to need to do. They want people to come and go here, right? I mean, they're in business to make money. They're in business for customer service. They're not going to tolerate having semis blocking their drive-through lanes. So if that becomes a problem for them, they're going to be the first ones to get on their delivery guy. And I think that we can address this internally with the development rather than looking beyond that at this point. And I'm happy to do that.
Do you mind if I ask, is that a condition that you would be willing to let us just add so that it's part of what we document to say that you will have that discussion
Sure, you can put it as a
somehow.
condition that I'll
I
have a
realize that that makes
conversation
it
with them
soft,
to
right?
have-
It's soft, but at
to
least
figure it
then
out.
it's addressing it, and I'll ask if you're okay with something like that.
Yeah.
You're okay?
Mr. Chair. So,
I mean, I wholly agree. I don't think the burden exists on one site.
Right.
100% on page with that. I'm just looking at the entire thing here. Not connect, when we have a surge volume business at the very end of a dead-end road, I get concerned about what's coming through there. And I think that's a challenge. I am comfortable with it, if you're willing to commit to that and commit to it as a part of it, and, I guess I would maybe just add that you send us what you decide as part of that condition.
I mean,
or
I'm
if the-
happy to have these conversations, and it's really gonna be the business owners that are gonna make those decisions, though. I mean, it's not me, right?
Agreed.
I don't have a business there. So those tenants are gonna make the decisions on what works best for their schedules. So again, I don't wanna dictate to them how they perform their own business here. But I can assure you that they don't want this to be any more of a conflict than you do, right? They wanna do their business as is, they wanna keep business open, they wanna keep their customers happy, so I don't foresee them not being on top of the delivery systems here, just like all of the other buildings are. So if there is an issue with somebody parking on one lot or another, they're gonna, I think, address that internally, and I'm happy to have the conversation, but I can't dictate anything to them on how they do it on their own internal properties. I mean, that's not, I don't have that authority, so.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Casey.
That kind of satisfies what I was thinking too, that this is a grouping of businesses. I mean, they're, they do have their own self-interest in mind. And I'm thinking, let the adults in the room work it out to their benefit. I mean, they're gonna have to have conversations, and if you can start that, I think that's a good place.
Happy
But,
to.
yeah, I think just the nature of the development, and they need to work that out to the best benefit. And I think it'll move traffic and bring in business.
Thank you.
Do you have any plans of having a bike rack or anything for this building?
We certainly can. I don't know if it was it in the plan?
Yeah, on the north side, there's a potential patio, or if there were a restaurant tenant or.
I think it would be kind of like what's at Jimmy John's currently. There's a little bike pad and a patio next to each other there, where they have the patio there.
With a specific bike rack so that people lock their bikes up to
Right.
the rack?
Right, exactly.
Because I don't see it on your plan here at all.
You can certainly, if that's something you wanted to add on there, that's fine. But that's the intention.
Thank you. Well, before we go any farther here, let's have our public hearing. I'll open the public hearing then for planning case 20-6, the site plan approval for the multi-tenant commercial building at 1825 Gateway Drive. Anyone wish to speak public hearing on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. So Commissioner Smokey, you were thinking of adding a condition?
So I'm trying to think about how it would be worded, right? So how are we addressing it? So that there's the commitment of the petitioner to meet with neighboring businesses to address
Let's call it internal discussions or something
internal
like that.
discussions, to address, or
Let
to
them handle
to conduct an internal discussion around
That will rest with the business
delivery,
owners.
delivery traffic flow.
Still don't know how to word it right.
I guess in my opinion, asking them to have a conversation and having no output that we get is a moot condition.
Agreed.
So I think we've heard that the applicant has agreed to do that pretty clearly. Again, to Commissioner Casey's point, let's let the adults be responsible and accountable.
Just let it go.
And I think we just stick with the additional landscaping one only at this point. you know, I think we all have similar concerns about this, but at the same time, there's not much that can be done after a PUD was developed forever ago, effectively.
I totally agree, since there isn't a response that we can actually receive back. I'm fine with that. I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate you carrying the microphone and addressing the concerns too, so, thank you.
However, I think we will add a condition for the bike rack.
Oh, good point.
And Mr. Chair, one other thing, you mentioned
The landscape.
3 additional bushes or something along that south border between Taco Bell and this. I noticed the landscaping, there's one tree there, but you had brought it up. Did we ever get a definitive?
Is there a certain type of bush that needs to go in there?
I don't
Anything like
care. I mean, there's lots of blank space to fill, and maybe there's a grade differentiation and won't make any difference.
I just didn't want to
That's Mr. Dunn.
Do they have trees here?
Probably.
Maybe Taco Bell has something on their property.
Well, that's what I was thinking, that I
Yeah,
did,
okay.
and I don't know the answer right off the top of my head, but I just didn't want it to, you don't want to have 2 trees growing into each other back to
No,
back,
no,
right?
yeah,
So we
right.
would need to look at something that,
Well, any
Made
additional
sense to-
screening or
right.
something, I don't know. Maybe they already have it in place.
Mr. Harker, what are these 2 little, look like circle stars? One on the Taco Bell property and one that looks like right at on the center, right on the line on the south end?
Are you talking along here?
Right there. And
I
then.
believe
if-
that's probably a light pole.
Oh, all right.
And these other ones.
There's
are
another one
probably
of the same
trees, like
symbol.
some sort of ornamental tree.
There's another one of the same symbol on the Taco Bell corner.
Yep, those are light poles.
Yeah.
Does that designate that Japanese lilac tree?
Those are designated as light poles per the
Light
plan.
poles?
So there's, looking at the overhead here, there's a light pole on the western curve of the Taco Bell. Actually, the pole in the south side that's indicated here kind of puts us where we'll have 3 lights with the additional condition of the one on the peninsula, the one that's indicated on the plan, and then Taco Bell has one on their property there. So there's kind of 3 decorative, lights that are facing down. The bulk of actually the blank space is on Taco Bell's property.
Yeah.
It's not here. I guess I wouldn't be inclined to add landscaping on the south side of this.
Looks tight.
Yeah, I think we missed it with Taco Bell, is probably where we're at on that. Yeah,
So leave that off. Is that what we're
I would leave the south line off and just stick with the west line for the PUD.
All right.
And that's the condition we added. So are we up to 8 conditions?
No, we got 9.
Bike
I
rack.
just thought the bike rack is the only one we're adding though,
Well,
right?
we got number 8, the additional landscaping on the west side.
Okay. And is there a particular landscaping plan that they need to follow?
That would be
According to the PUD, correct?
according to the PUD and as approved by commissioner, staff.
What side is the bike rack on? Is that the-
Just leave that up to
To the site.
petitioner to put it wherever they
Sure.
can fit it. But probably on that north side where the patio is, but it's totally up to them. All right, do we have anyone ready for the motion now?
Mr. Chair, I'm ready to make a motion.
Commissioner Smokey.
In planning case 20-6, I recommend approval of the proposed site plan with the following conditions. all engineering comments be addressed, a site security agreement be entered into with the city, all signs require separate permits, a sidewalk be constructed that connects with the existing sidewalk on the Taco Bell site, light fixtures be consistent with those established in the PUD, a decorative light fixture be installed in the peninsula adjacent to the Taco Bell site, a crosswalk be installed across the drive aisle adjacent to the Taco Bell site. And then the two additional conditions, condition number 8 would be the addition of landscaping according to the PUD and as approved by staff
On the west side.
on the west side. And condition number 9 then is the addition of a bike rack.
I'll second that.
Motion by Smokey, second by Casey. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That's a decision by the planning commission and can be appealed to the city council within 10 days if someone so chooses. Congratulations and good luck.
Thank you very much.
All right, our next case, planning case 20-5, a registered land survey to subdivide vacated street easement at 3110 131st Avenue. David Martz. Mr. Harker.
Yeah, Chair and Commissioners, this is a proposed registered land survey. The reason it's not a regular lot split because the legal descriptions of the property, abstract versus Torrance. So that's the reason for the RLS process. Back in 2004, the two adjoining property owners petitioned the city to vacate what was half a right-of-way going through here, street easement. City did approve that vacation, and the property was transferred to the property to the north, the Seachies. Property owner to the south, the Martzes, have been in discussions with the Seachies, and what they're proposing to do is take that strip of vacated street easement and split it in two, with half of it being transferred to the property owner to the south, the Martzes, and the remainder staying with the current ownership. Here's the survey of the property with the two houses. This here, going from here up to this dash line, was the old easement. What's being proposed is the south half of that be created as Track B, and the remainder of that, the north half, along with the existing lot, be Tract A. And here's what the registered land survey will look like. This Tract B will have to be combined with the adjoining property owner here on Lot 9. With that, I'll answer any questions, and staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend approval with the condition that all engineering comments be addressed and Tract B be combined with Lot 9 to the south.
Thank you, Mr. Harlicker. Commission, any questions from Mr. Harlicker?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler.
Mr. Harlicker, just one quick question. Both parties are amenable to how this is laid out at this point?
Yep, they both signed off on the application.
Perfect, thank you.
Mr. Harlicker, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Casey.
So historically, was there ever a road that went to the lake?
No, there was not.
Okay, never, it was there potentially, but never.
Yep, and the two adjoining property owners petitioned the city to vacate it and city deemed they didn't need that easement anymore and vacated it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thanks.
Anything else from Mr. Harker? All right, at this time, I will open a public hearing in planning case 20-5, a registered land survey to subdivide vacated street easement at 3110 131st Avenue. Anyone wish to speak at this public hearing? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. And Commission,
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Casey.
I'll make a motion in planning case 20-5 that we recommend approval of the proposed registered land survey with the following conditions. All engineering comments be addressed and tract B to be combined with lot 9 to the south.
Second.
Motion by Casey, second by Geisler. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This is a recommendation by the Planning Commission and a decision by the City Council at the July 7th meeting. And our next case, planning case 20-7, site plan for new creations Childcare at 1805 Gateway Drive, Rylauer LLC. Mr. Harker.
Yeah, Chair Schwartz and Commissioners. This is the site here. This is the one we just looked at for the multi-tenant building. They're proposing a two-story childcare center. This is the site plan. Current city code requires, I believe, 32 parking spaces, and 34 spaces are provided. They've got the building here, outdoor play areas surrounding it. They've got a garden area back here along the floodplain with a storage building. The front part of this will be used as for the dumpster enclosure, and the other half will be equipment storage. You've got the main access here coming in off of Hanson with access into the site at this point here. This is the grading plan here, the stormwater pond along Hanson, as well as an area back in here where they're grading. Again, this will have to be approved by the engineering, and they are reviewing it, as well as Coon Creek watershed. Anything along the creek requires watershed approval. This here is the proposed monument sign. It's right there on the site plan. That'll be for this building here, as well as the multi-tenant building to the west. Here's the landscape plan. They do have trees along the driveway here, as well as scattered throughout the site. The overstory trees here will provide shade for this play area, and the building and this overstory trees will help provide shade for the back area back here. Then they've got the overstory trees at the curb here, and then along the front of the building, as well as shrubs and perennials around the building. This here is a sidewalk that wraps around the building. It provides emergency access for these doors here. Building elevations, it's a mix of materials. This is the, the east elevation. So this is what faces Hanson Boulevard. This is the south with the main entrance area here. This faces the Jimmy John's Taco Bell site. And this is the west elevation that faces the proposed multi-tenant. And this would be the rear of the building that faces Coon Creek. This shows up a little bit better the materials. You've got the brick and stone that match the other buildings in the development. You've got a gray hardy plank siding here, and then a metal, architectural metal piece here that covers the entry atrium into the project, as well as it provides an outdoor space up above. This is looking at it from Hanson Boulevard, looking to the northwest, I would say. This is another perspective, looking at it more from over by the Jimmy John's corner of the building. Again, you've got the brick base that wraps around it, and the stone on the columns with the hardy plank siding. Here's the materials that are being proposed. And you've got the stone and brick, and you've got the hardy plank siding, the middle panels along here, and then the other aluminum across the top of the buildings and decorative around the windows. With that, I'll answer any questions. The applicant is in the audience also, and he can go into a little more detail about the actual operations of the daycare center, as well as the architectural design and materials.
Thank you, Mr. Harker. Commission, any questions for Mr. Harker? All right, if the petitioner would like to come up and give presentation, give your name and address, please, for the record.
Good evening, I'm Peter Hilger from Rylar LLC, 14 Pheasant Lane, North Oaks, Minnesota. I am the architect for New Creations. I just wanted to appreciate the being here today and actually being able to bring this particular development into Coon Rapids. I will tell you that, and I'll expand a little bit on the traffic issues that I suspect you probably asked earlier today. We can certainly expand on that, but I can absolutely and affirmatively tell you that our kids do not drive trucks and store them in the parking lot, but they may do it in the playground, okay? Just wanted you to know that. All right. I'm happy to answer any questions, but why don't I dive right into the traffic, because I think that was the issue that was of great concern. When we initially looked at these two sites, actually, we considered initially the site to the west. That was where we had our initial purchase agreement, was where you just considered the retail building. I decided against that particular site because it did not have the geometry necessary for our development in the relationship of classroom spaces to play areas, in which we like to have a direct connection from inside to outside without having to go through any parking or so forth. This particular site also had the advantage of being closer for visibility purposes to Hanson Boulevard for the business, but it also required that we would need to elevate the building into 2 stories, which is a little unusual for childcare centers, but is evolving in particularly difficult sites, challenging sites. This site also, along with the rest of the sites, obviously has deep soil condition issues. And the placement of this building at this particular location also allows us to use a conventional footing system with soil correction as opposed to a more expensive pier system. The site also allows us to have very adequate play areas with excellent frontage to the Coon Creek environment, which is, we believe to be very ideal as an environment, not only seen from the classrooms, especially by the older kids from the second level, as well as with the play space itself. So that's kind of the philosophical underpinnings of this. Now, to address the traffic issue a little bit, let me just say that I also like this site because it's a dead end, all right? If I'm looking at a site for traffic purposes, I would much rather be at the end of a parking lot than at the beginning of a roadway. In other words, I want to be at the end because that's where the least amount of traffic will occur, all right? So this site has the advantage that we have the right turn in off of Hanson Boulevard, and then you have to make a turn back into the parking lot. All of the parking spaces that you see along the north side of the main parking lot are basically reserved for our parents with kids. Kids are not dropped off. They are escorted into the center. So there is no drive-through drop-off here, okay? You have to bring the kids in, you have to sign in, you have to see them off, and then you leave. A typical transaction time for that kind of an event is oftentimes 5 minutes to 10 minutes at the most, you know, depending upon the crankiness of the child at that particular time of the morning. So all of the parking that you see on the north side is basically reserved for parent drop-off and pickup. Employee parking is reserved for the parking stalls on the west, as well as the parking stalls on the south side of that area. Now, it's important to understand that with childcare, not all 25 staff show up at the same time. There is a staggering of staff that come to the site over the course of the day and that also leave at the site because we have hours that go from 6:30 to 6 p.m., 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. So we will have staggered staff times. And a lot of those staggered times occur when we are least busy in terms of the traffic, the parking lot drop-off, if you will. Most of the drop-offs will occur, based upon my studies of childcare centers in the Twin Cities, and I've done approximately 90 childcare centers over the last 30 years. About 70% of the drop-offs occur within that 6:30 to 9 a.m. time frame. All right, that's when most of them occur. Some of them come a little bit later. Pickups will start early in the afternoon for people that work either part-time or different shifts, as well as to the closing time at around 6 o'clock. And the density of traffic exiting the site is typically much less during the pickup period of time than it is in the morning period of time. Now, that happens to work well for a retail environment such as this development because retail typically does not open until 9 a.m. For most retail applications, so we're sort of offset on that, with the exception of coffee, you know, and drive-up and gasoline, which we have at this site. So if I'm a parent coming to this site, I am going to drive in, drop off, go to Caribou, leave, go to work, and come back. That our order might be reversed. This particular traffic orientation, I am not at all troubled by the discussion that you had earlier with the previous applicant or what we see here, provided that we have that stop sign at the end of the inbound lane, which I believe there is a stop sign there right now. And we've specifically designed this parking lot to be, you have to make a turn into the parking lot and it's going to be slow. You're starting from a stop, making a full 180-degree turn into the parking lot, and that's basically a slow-moving operation. So I don't have very many concerns about that. Exiting, we come to the end of the parking lot, and then we have to move left back out straight. So it's only a 90-degree turn. It's not a 180-degree turn to get back out. It's a 90-degree left turn to get out. Don't have any concerns with that either. All right. So, like I said, just to sort of reemphasize, having this on a dead end helps me very much. In terms of parking, I have done an extensive amount of parking analysis, and I'm happy to hand this out. They didn't receive it.
They didn't, no.
Okay. today has provided you an analysis of parking, and I will tell you right now that Coon Rapids is in the sweet spot of parking, permissible parking within the metro area for childcare centers. What you see at the top of this page are developed site comparisons. In other words, these are, what I've listed for you here are existing childcare centers with the total building area, the licensed capacity, as well as the number of staff that the site is licensed for, and then the ratios that develop as a result of that. So our proposed site, using the average of those counts, shows that we would have 34 parking stalls, if you kind of looked at that particular analysis. If you also look at the ITE Parking Generation Manual, which is the Internet Institute of Traffic Engineering, the ITE Trip Generation Manual uses 3 methods to determine childcare parking, all right? One method would result in 31 spaces, another method would result in 38 spaces, a third method would result in 31 spaces. The average of those 3 methods is 33 spaces. Again, we're right in the sweet spot. Finally, when you look at the metro area childcare parking ordinance comparison, you can see that compared to other communities, you are kind of smack in the middle. Again, you're in the sweet spot. All right, there are a number of communities that would require fewer parking stalls than you do, and some communities that would require more. And there are several communities that, such as Lino Lakes that you see here, for this center would require 57 parking spaces. But Lino Lakes, having just completed a center in Lino Lakes, I know that they allowed a traffic deferment plan. So all you have to do is to present the evidence, and they will rely upon the evidence of a traffic study and the evidence of demonstrated operations to prove the case for parking, which they did. And so I just want to point out to you, and I think this was to your comment, Commissioner Geisler, that whether there was adequate parking, there is absolutely adequate parking here, based upon my experience with 90-plus childcare centers. Okay, I can affirm that for you. So with respect to the traffic issues overall, I just want to say that I believe that we are in the right spot, and I don't have any concerns about the movements or about even the traffic density that we'll experience on this particular site. With that, all of the other conditions that you have outlined in your staff report, we have no objections to. We did include a bike rack. It's actually kind of a cute one. And with me today, I do have the CEO from New Creations here, Mr. Ryan Carlson, if you're interested in asking questions of him, and I'm available to answer any further questions for you at this time.
Thank you. Commission, any questions for the petitioner?
Yes, Chair Schwartz, I have a question.
Commissioner Knobloch.
Commissioner. Yeah, my only question I had was the type and the height of the fence that borders with the Coon Creek watershed with the creek that's to the north, I believe, or northeast of the proposed lot.
All fences, according to the New Creation standards, are 4 feet high.
Okay.
Generally, industry standard is between 4 feet and 5 feet, typically.
Okay. And the composition, like chain link,
Chain link,
wood?
yep.
Okay.
Specifically coated chain link is
Yes.
what's listed in the packet.
Did you say it was coated?
Coated, black coated. Assuming you're sticking to the plan.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Casey,
so I had a question about that retention pond that sits, between the building and Hanson Boulevard. Is that anticipated to be full, or is it surrounded by anything? What are we looking at there?
I can perhaps have Chad Akers respond to that. As our civil engineer, we're doubling up on you tonight.
Sure.
Yes, like Peter said, we're still in early discussions with the Coon Creek watershed, as we will have to go in and get a watershed permit. That front area along Hanson, when we submitted these plans, we were thinking it's going to be kind of a low depth infiltration basin. So to your question, we're not proposing that it's holding water. It's an infiltration basin. So again, most designs call for an infiltration basin to draw down and soak in within 48 hours. So it's not a wet pond.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else, questions for petitioner? All right, thank you. May have more later, but,
Okay.
all right, at this time, I will open a public hearing in planning case 20-7, the site plan for New Creations Childcare at 1805 Gateway Drive. Anyone present and wish to speak to the public hearing on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And commission thoughts?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Geisler.
So first of all, I'd like to say that this is an excellent looking development, so it's props to you for that. And also, thank you for bringing a whole bunch of data. This is definitely the kind of benchmarking that I'd like to see to help explain why we're doing what we're doing. I can tell you that off the cuff, when I first looked at this, 34 seemed slim, especially thinking that 2/3 of that would be occupied by staff at full capacity. Looking at the fact that it's rarely fully staffed, or it's really fully occupied from a childcare perspective, I do think that it does start to make a little more sense seeing all the numbers fully laid out, especially with this additional regional analysis here. I do still think that, I have some concerns that, sometimes you get 10 parents showing up at the same time, and we'd be overflowing into the other applicants, presumably curved space where there's parking there, or into the Caribou lot. So I do worry about that, because while children are escorted, children are children. They get to, they will run around. Having a 2-year-old, they go. But I do think that the plan is fairly adequate and backed by good, solid data and information. I will say that the applicant did mention a stop sign at the end of the right-in off of Hanson. There is not one. That's currently a smooth flow-through. Since we've mentioned that this is a private land piece, I would assume that stop sign would be placed by the applicant versus the city, since it's no longer a city drive. So I would maybe consider that we require a stop sign at the end of that right-in off of Hanson, therefore, as the applicant mentioned, to ensure that traffic is not coming in off that road quickly. I think that helps everybody, honestly, around here.
So you want to add that as condition number 8?
I would pitch that as to the commission if they agree with that for discussion, but I think that's a reasonable one, and the applicant even brought it up, so. Otherwise, I do have one quick question on the preschool surface and the toddler surface. Are those grass? Are they mixed media? Are they rubberized? Just what kind of materials are we looking at in those play spaces?
The standard for new creations is a combination. We'll have some hard surface, which would be concrete for hard play surfaces. Fall zones underneath playground equipment will be X-grass with foam under it, which is basically an artificial turf with foam. A large portion of the balance, especially the preschool playground there, would all be natural turf.
Perfect, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Casey,
so you're saying the hardscape that's delineated here on the plan, that's the concrete?
Well,
For-
that is,
for the
what it is hard, social distancing here. What it is hardscape for the purposes of calculating infiltration. Okay, so my hardscape can consist of some concrete, some crushed, compacted rock with foam with X grass on top of it. So it's not very pervious. You know, it has limited porosity.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, from a calculation perspective, it's considered hard surface.
Okay, then I had one other question about your balcony. And I'm thinking your top floor is the older kids
Yes.
that you're gonna have, and then the bottom floor, the toddlers. So what's the surround on that balcony? It looks like is it plexiglass that sits above the
It
the
would-
railing?
Well, the railing is set back from the roof edge, and that's just simply a safety. And what we do, we generally plan for any kind of railings is that they're non-climbable. All right? So we wouldn't use plexiglass because it doesn't age well. We'd probably use some sort of a picket or something like that that is not easily climbable, or a small mesh. That's what we were kind of showing there, is a very small mesh that you can't get your size
Feet in,
one
yeah.
shoes into.
Okay.
And that classroom is just simply an outdoor space to bring people from the large motor room. It's a smaller activity space. It's not a large crowded space. This is a new element for new creations. I think it's sort of an opportunity to create a different environment and
Yeah.
make it attractive for kids.
It's a very attractive building, grounds. You've done well. It's it'll be a nice addition.
The monument sign, is that going to be something that you folks will be putting in eventually after you get permits?
Well, the monument sign, originally the monument sign was shown on I believe on the original plat as being farther to the north on Hanson Boulevard. You can see where it's being pointed out right now. But the utility company came in and planted 2 large utility boxes right there. So we cannot put a sign there. So we have proposed to relocate that common sign for the purposes of the PUD in this location, which will also improve its visibility overall. I'm assuming that monument sign, the cost of which would be shared between our 2 entities, because we only benefit in a limited fashion by that sign. But we have to, by obligation to the seller, provide a space for a common monument sign.
And Mr. Harker, if you could go back to that picture that it showed the front of the building there. There we go. So is this pretty representative of what you believe the monument sign would be then?
Yes, we literally copied that from the one that is right across the street, right across the driveway that serves the Caribou Coffee Building. So it's a common monument sign.
Then I guess my question would be, and I don't know if for you or for the developer, but the top half is obviously for your new creations, childcare. The bottom, you're gonna list 5 businesses in that small space on the bottom?
No. I don't think it would be clear enough to put 5 people in there. So it's likely that we'll have a larger tenant in the building and not have 5 tenants. I mean, that's what my thought is. So the larger tenant would get access to that monument sign. So it's more of a preference for somebody in the building that you reviewed earlier, so.
All right, I just
makes
wanted to
sense.
make sure that the sign wouldn't enlarge because you've
No.
got so many more tenants there.
Right, no.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Casey?
I have one more question. We talked about semis and all kinds of delivery trucks. Your facility gets a catered meal, and is it 5 days a week that you're open?
Yes.
That the hours would be, so what kind of a truck delivers your catered meals?
I'm Ryan Carlson. We actually make the food for all of our locations at a central site in Blaine, and then it's delivered in minivan to the locations 3 days a week.
Okay, how come 3?
Because 2 of the days are cold days, so those are delivered within the other 2 days.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yep, and they are actually delivered prior to us opening for the day.
Oh, Okay. Thank you.
And Mr. Harlicker, a question for you, I guess. Do we need, there's been mention of meeting requirements for the Coon Creek watershed, do we need any condition to that respect?
Yeah, Chair, you could add that as a condition, but it's formal process as part of the review process. Building permits aren't issued until Coon Creek Watershed signs off on applications that they review.
So something to the effect of meet the conditions of the Coon Creek watershed?
Yeah, or you just say prior to the issuance of building permits, they must receive a Coon Creek watershed permit.
That sounds good to me. Anything else, Commission?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Smokey?
Just one question. On the road that is coming in between the Caribou, Jimmy John's and this New Creations, does that road have a name? So I was trying to think in terms of writing up the additional condition for that too. It's easier to state that it's the furthest north, furthest northwest end of what? How do we describe that road then if it doesn't have a name? Stumped ya. So the entrance road, should we just refer to it as the entrance road, the furthest end point of the entrance road?
Yeah.
Up here,
I guess for a placement, because you just, although I know it wouldn't happen, you would hate to see a stop sign get added right at the beginning, so,
Yeah.
at the entrance, so. I know it wouldn't make sense, but I figured we should probably give it a placement.
I mean, I think,
At the southwest median of the property,
I
Southwest
would think
median.
the stop sign, you're talking about
right there, yeah.
right here.
That is correct, yeah. Yes, right by where that crosswalk is, actually, where number 8.
Probably put it behind the.
Right,
behind
exactly, right, but in that proximity, right?
Yep.
So say maybe in the proximity of the sidewalk at,
Or you could say east of the crosswalk.
east of the crosswalk?
Between
At the
the
right
Caribou and the New
directions.
Creations property, yeah.
The way
It's
I wrote
actually
it
west,
down,
isn't it?
the way I wrote it down was stop sign on drive-in roadway prior to driveway entrance.
Perfect.
That works.
You get to make the motion. No, I know, it still doesn't work. So prior to the what, did you say prior?
Prior to driveway entrance.
But along this road, right? So again, we're not looking for.
On the drive-in
in the
roadway.
drive-in road, yeah.
We'll get it in the right place. Don't worry.
Perfect. Okay.
Anyone willing to go with a motion?
I have it open.
Do you have it all written down, Mary?
I do, I think. So, Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Smokey?
in planning case 20-7, we recommend approval of the proposed site plan with the following conditions. All engineer comments be addressed. All Anoka County Highway Department comments be addressed. A site security agreement be entered into with the city. All signs require separate permits. A crosswalk be installed where the Hanson Boulevard sidewalk crosses the right-in access. Light fixtures must be consistent with the style established in the PUD. A decorative fixture be where the building sidewalk intersects the Hanson Boulevard sidewalk and where the Hanson Boulevard sidewalk crosses the right-in access. And then the addition of 2 more conditions, the first being, so it'd be condition number 8, is the addition of a stop sign along the driveway prior to the entrance into, the right turn into the New Creations entrance, so right, if that makes sense. And then prior to the issuance of the permits, they must receive watershed sign off and approval.
Second.
Motion by Smokey, second by Geisler. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. This is a decision by the Planning Commission and can be appealed to the City Council within 10 days if someone so chooses. Congratulations and good luck.
Very exciting.
Thank you, everyone.
Other business. Mr. Harker, you have anything?
The two storage centers, self-storage buildings are underway, same as last month. They're making headway. A lot of decks, a lot of storage sheds. People are finding projects to do.
Yeah,
So,
but nothing, Mr. Herlicker, on those 4 lots that were approved, behind, off of 121st, Lane, I think it is, 121st Lane, north on Hanson, and take a left or go west on 121st Avenue, and then off, just south of 121st Lane, there were those 4
oh,
lots
that
we-
little cul-de-sac, yep.
Yeah, nothing's been done there.
No, there haven't, nope.
Just sitting on that.
They've got final approval and,
They haven't,
or they haven't gotten final approval yet. They got preliminary approval.
oh,
And that's good for a year.
okay.
They haven't
'cause
taken any
the demol-
action on final approval.
Yeah, there's no buildings demolished or anything
No.
yet.
I don't think the house has been demolished.
No, doesn't look like it. Okay.
And Mr. Harker, do we have anything on the agenda for next month yet?
We have one item. It's Townhouse Development. You'd probably be familiar with a 6-unit building by Hoover on 109. The original developer decided not to move forward with the project, and their approval expired. Another builder came forward with a very similar site plan. So you'll be seeing the site plan and preliminary plat next month for that. The only real difference, I haven't seen the building elevations, they're still refining those. But on the one that was approved a couple of years ago, the building, front of the buildings faced the west, and the rear of the buildings faced the school. They flipped that around because, in part from the comments from the adjacent homeowner, they've got the driveway and garages facing the school, and the rear of the units and the patios facing the west.
Nice.
Otherwise, the layout is pretty similar. There's really only one way you can develop that site.
All right. And welcome to our beloved attorney, Mr. Blair Puccini.
Apologies, we lost power at the house.
Oh,
Okay. I'm here now.
we had a ton of legal questions for you, but Scott handled them.
Did you really?
We actually had a couple.
In your name.
We got through it.
We got through it.
What's that?
I got promoted.
I'm sorry.
Temporarily.
If I didn't even have his phone number, or I would have called.
It's okay.
I'm sorry, guys. I really apologize for being late.
Was that the Andover end of?
Yeah, it wasn't long, and then it was a whole thing.
Life happens.
It does. My apologies, guys. I'm really sorry. My wife goes, "Did you miss it?" I'm like, "I hope not." Was my entrance on TV?
We're still
Yes,
on.
we're still on.
We're still on, but I don't know if the cameras picked you up. But anyone else with anything for other business? Entertain a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Motion by Casey, second by Knobloch. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Meeting's adjourned.
Is it still